I am live with Professor Jack Burkart for DFS Goalkeepers 101. We have a ton of information to give to the people on this wonderful Friday afternoon. Yes, we are in the afternoon. Here we go, Jack. What's up, everyone? I'm Adam Zdroik, joined by Jack Burkart. Yes, this is Friday. No, this is not a regular DFS show because guess what? For the next, 2 weeks, I guess 3 weeks because there's a break, it's just a bunch of showdowns. So maybe we're going to do some solo pods. We're not going to have any regular pods with Ryan and Jordan. We're doing DFS Goalkeeper 101. Jack, happy Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. You spent the last 2 weeks grinding tape and goalkeeper stats. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Adam. Yeah, I went to London a couple weeks ago. I made sure to chart, all of the expected goals conceded for my boy Vicario, who's our cover boy. And no, it's been nice. I get a mid-semester break here. There's really not much DFS to play. It's just Showdown, which is, I don't know, just get lucky. I feel like that sounds like a loser thing to say, but gives me enough time to throw some stuff in a spreadsheet and have a little fun. So hence we have the goalkeeper article here that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, speaking of DFS here, we have Liga MX returns tonight. We have
Oh, what a
two
day!
gamers. We have a two-gamer. Do we have a two-gamer tonight? Maybe not tonight, but we have two gamers tomorrow. So
Oh, it's gonna
Liga
be
MX.
flying in the Discord. If you want to play a little Liga MX, I'll be there. I'll be there. So please
Yeah,
join
we
us.
got looks like we got a Luis Malahone slate coming up Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. So it's going to be some fun times. Only subscribers know about that. So rotowire.com/soccer trial. That's a 48-hour trial. But this is the article that we're going to be talking about and discussing DraftKings goalkeeper analysis. And you're going to need a subscription. I'm not going to scroll through this entire thing for you, but you're going to need a subscription to check this out. You're going to need to find the answers of what goalkeepers to play, how to determine what goalkeepers you want to play. So let's just start there. Jack, why did you want to write this article? Everyone knows you're already the goalkeeper whisperer, at least in our Discord. So what led you to this article and why you wanted to research goalkeepers?
Yeah, I am the goalkeeper whisperer. I tell you who I play, and then you just pivot off, and it should be a profitable decision. Should you get everything else right? Um, I wanted to write it because of a few things. The first thing was that it's like possible to do, right? So it's like DraftKings, the way that they price the goalkeepers, it's basically just like, there's a few other things. It depends how many teams are on the slate, but it's mostly a function of the team's implied win probability whenever they come out with the pricing. And so I thought, well, I don't have all the historical pricing for the goalkeepers, but we can just substitute win probability as price. And so it makes it pretty simple to analyze. There's not so many factors that go into goalkeeper scoring, right? It's the win, which you can measure. It's the clean sheet, which is easily measured. And then there's saves, which is something that's kept track of by most data sources. So I found a nice data set that had old win odds from Sharpbook Pinnacle. So it just made it seem like a plausible thing to do. And I know that there's other things that go into goalkeeper scoring. Like you're gonna be like, well, Professor Burkhardt, what about accurate passes? And it's just like it doesn't matter that much, right? Like most goalkeepers, there's very few outlier passer performances, and if you can project them, it's like congratulations, like you get like a little half point bump. Saves are 2 points, goals conceded are -2. I thought that those were the main drivers, and because there's so few variables, it seemed plausible. And the other thing was, I don't know, I was tilting a bit about goalkeeper. I've always been wondering, what's the difference between a $4,500 goalkeeper and a $3,800 goalkeeper? It's usually like 15% win probability, and I've been spending down in cash games a lot. I kind of just want to put like some numbers onto some of the narratives we say, like, oh, play, Jordan says a lot, play cheapest goalkeeper, and I'm sure there's a good reason behind it. Jordan's a good and experienced player, but I wanted to kind of figure out, what did that really sort of mean in terms of the numbers, and what do the distributions of the really high scoring goalkeepers like? Do the $5,900 goalkeepers really have like lower variance than other goalkeepers? So just to try to put some numbers on some of our more qualitative assumptions and see if we can make some like baselines basically.
Yeah, I like how you have the student speak down already. Well, maybe not already, but well, Mister Professor Burkhardt.
I'm well experienced.
That was a nice touch. Yeah, so you grab these odds from Football Data, which you got to go into this article. Click on this link. This is Jack brought me onto this site. I did not know this site existed. So uh, obviously very helpful for what you did, but maybe helpful for like future, I don't know, future analysis as well. If anyone wants to dive into more historical odds analysis, they have just like odds. I think for the life of the Premier League, they have odds dating back to like the early 90s, I believe I saw. So just an incredible source that you used for grabbing the pinnacle
Yeah,
odds there.
Adam, I'm sorry. I'm gonna interrupt. It's ridiculous. I thought I would have to find like closing line data like that looked this nice. I didn't even have to like clean any of the data. It was like data cleaning is just to make it like able to analyze. Like it was immediately useful. Some of the stuff that they had. It doesn't have everything. It has like shots and corners and some halftime splits and all sorts of stuff I couldn't understand. But that data source is free. I think that's a lot of fun. So if you want to click around, I'll probably do it for Liga MX this weekend because tis the season. But
Yeah, not only is that site not only is that site awesome, it's free.
I can't believe it's free.
When you first sent it to me, I was like, how does this even exist? But it's definitely something I'm gonna probably utilize or at least look at here and there when doing whatever. When I want to research random stuff, just look back. Oh, what were the odds on this 2012 matchup between, I don't know, Wigan and Sunderland?
Adam, you can do some fun stuff with corners if you want to help boost your corners and wagers bets a little bit. You can run a few regressions or something if you want.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Just diving into historical corner numbers and see how the numbers have changed, because I know the corner numbers have changed this season because of the added stoppage time and extra time. So that is something interesting. So that, because that
Yeah.
added to the added numbers there. So just link is here in the article. Again, you're going to need a subscription to get into this article. Written by Professor Jack Burkart, rotowire.com/soccer trial. So I'll show these graphs here. As we can tell by these graphs, how much information can we glean from all of this? You said you wanted to. Is it worth it to play the 5,900 goalkeeper, or is it worth it to spend down 3,800? Did did any of, I mean, I know it was just kind of looking at numbers, looking at odds. Did any, like, okay, maybe a 2 game slate versus a 6 game slate, did that kind of like creep into your mind here and there? I don't think you really discussed that too much, but just in terms of how much that matters into getting towards your conclusion of, are the
Mhm.
goalkeepers worth it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I didn't take any of that into account, right? That's the type of stuff that you'll have to apply this and then kind of run it through. I had this argument with, well, I wasn't really arguing. I was just going back and forth with Ryan after a recent 2 game FA Cup slate, and I spent down a goalkeeper and he spent up, and we were kind of just slinging turds back and forth about which was the better approach. And in a 2 game slate, the game theory of goalkeeper is going to be a little bit different. Like if there's only like one big favorite and one toss up, there's like you know there's a large amount of time that the favored goalkeeper is just going to outscore the other ones, and like a lot of this analysis doesn't matter as much necessarily. You have to use DFS knowledge to apply this stuff. I think that's one thing that's kind of important to emphasize. How does the game theory of each situation in a 6 game, let's just imagine it's a 5 match Premier League slate, though. I mean, you have 10 goalkeepers to choose from, and if you look at these plots, I mean, we have goalkeeper scoring, based on saves, winning, clean sheet. There is really good performing goalkeepers across the board, across all of the price ranges. So, I mean, it seems a little bit trite to say it, but I think if you're a tournament player, literally just play whatever goalkeeper you want. And if you know that there's going to be a goalkeeper who's not going to have as much ownership or utilization, just play them because outside of some micro takes that you can use, their top 25 percentile outcomes are almost all the same, from like the win probability windows of 20 to 80%. It's sort of crazy. So, um, just seeing that there's really good, it didn't really matter home or away. It didn't, for like the really good performances, I think you can just attack wherever you want and literally whatever makes sense, as long as you're not like if you have Dom Solanke and Bournemouth are playing Crystal Palace, don't play Dean Henderson. Okay, like outside of that obvious observation,
Mhm.
I don't think there's any goalkeeper ever really worth prioritizing unless you think you have an edge on evaluating goalkeepers. And I really don't think I do, just thinking about, I don't know which goalkeeper is good. I'm sure there's like some like stats that you can look at too if there's a team that, concedes a few more saves than usual. I don't know how much that would move the numbers, but I think it just kind of helps for you from worrying about it. If you play DFS quite a lot, it'll eventually go your way. And if you look at all of the negative scores, it'll eventually screw you over, really, no matter where, no matter where you're paying. So
Yeah, I think as you said, what you can get into the weeds with this. You can get in the weeds of how big a slate is, or you're talking Solanke and Dean Henderson kind of thing, the opposing goalkeeper. But I mean, I'm sure you've had showdowns where like you're captaining goalkeeper and then you have maybe all five attacking players on
yeah,
the other team just to rack up saves kind of a thing. And I mean, you can also do that on, this is just, again, getting into the weeds here. Maybe it's like, okay, I'll play the goalkeeper facing Manchester City, and I'll get the 6 saves, maybe allows 2 or 3 goals, but you're getting floor points for the Manchester City guys, maybe a couple goals kind of thing. So you're going to be okay if the goalkeeper's 3,600 or whatever. But and
exactly.
then you have other slates where it's like, okay, well, they scored 4 goals and there are no saves made. Um, so obviously that is one of the things here, as we look at, okay, that I mean, you could probably find those results here on
Hmm.
this board here. It's like, okay, here's a big favorite with a big score near 20 points. Here's a big favorite with uh with negative here.
Yeah,
Um
it's really universal across the board. And there's a table. Maybe we don't show it. You have to pay to see the table. But I segmented all the goalkeepers into win probabilities. So it's like everything was away and home split. It really didn't matter too much. I think there was a bit more variance on the away goalkeepers, especially on like the most catastrophic outcomes were for huge road underdogs. This really isn't too much of a surprise. But like you were looking at, just to summarize, if you had a win probability between 0 and 20, no matter if you were home or away, you were finishing 0 or less in terms of this goalkeeper floor, just saves and goals conceded. You were finishing low, like, I don't know, like it was 30% of the time. And, when we talk on the shows, it's like, okay, you can pay down at goalkeeper, but, if you get -6, so be it. But that just doesn't happen that often. Like negative, like I think what I had for the first quartile, which is the 25th percentile outcome. So that means, 25% of the outcomes are at that level or worse. For goalkeepers that were severe dogs, that was 0. So that means that really these catastrophic -6 games just don't really happen that often.
mhm.
Still like getting 0 or less 30% of the time stinks, but then you ask, well, what happens if I, play a goalkeeper in the, 20 to 30 or 30 to 40% win range? And those negative performances are happening at like a 20% clip. And my takeaway is that, it depends on the slate, but that doesn't really seem worth $800 in DraftKings salary a lot of the times, at least to me. So that was kind of that was a big takeaway that I had when doing this. I think we overestimate the failure rate for the cheapest goalkeepers, and I think we might underestimate the failure rate for like goalkeepers in this 4,400%, $4,400 price range. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's just the assumption of, okay, this guy's priced cheap, so he's more likely to get -10. This guy's expensive, so he's more likely to get +20 kind of a thing. But at the end of the day, that's not really, yeah, I guess you got to put price into there kind of thing. But that's
yeah.
just kind of like assumptions. The prices are there based off the odds, and we're kind of assuming this and this kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I mean I think it's as simple as it seems. Like I think you can scroll down. I have like goalkeeper floor if you scroll to like a slightly different chart. Um,
yeah.
so okay, so this is goalkeeper floor right here, and what I call goalkeeper floor is just your 2 times saves minus goals conceded. So this is everything before the bonuses. Sorry, no accurate passes, but I think it kind of confirms it's pretty random. It's a slight downward trend, right? Big favorites are less likely to take on saves, so I think that explains the really slight downward trend. I want to emphasize it's very slight, and this isn't really even a linear relationship, so it's very random. But yeah, I mean, I think you're just looking at, there's a certain ratio that we expect over the long term of shots on goals versus saves, and it's kind of evident. It's kind of evident in the data in this way that we're expecting our goalkeepers to have about 2 more saves than goals conceded many, many times. And cheaper goalkeepers are going to hit their ceiling by just outperforming the save expectation, and more favored goalkeepers are going to hit their ceiling more dependent on hitting the bonuses. I don't know why I got into this sort of rant, but
We're
it's
just
just
talking
sort of,
about a lot of random things here.
yeah, I think it's just sort of, I don't know, it's pretty random. Like, I don't really know how you can predict these things with a high level of accuracy unless you're like really sharp with your micro level takes. But if you think you are, I'd like to see you measure your observations over a really big sample and see if you can really outperform these sort of random trends in a meaningful way.
Yeah, just looking straight off of these tables here, it seems like very slightly you have the away goalkeeper floor for big favorites is actually better than the home goalkeeper floor.
I'd say that's random, Adam.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
it's okay. I was gonna say, is that maybe that's because away goalkeepers are more likely to make saves, whereas home goalkeepers are not as likely to make saves because they're at home and they're at home. So and yeah.
I wondered this a little bit, like, an away team, let's just think about like what type of team is a big away underdog. They're usually much less talented, right? And if they do nick a goal early or something like that, they're going to get barraged with shots for the rest of the game. So maybe there is some of that lended in the data. And if you want to give it a slight lean, I think that's fine. But I think one thing I learned with doing this is that you really shouldn't overprice that in your head. So let's just say that it is true that they are slightly better. We're talking about like a half point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, looking at
It's
the
not that.
screen, okay, it's
Yeah, you
very
really have
slight here, very slight.
very, very slight. And I think that's an important takeaway as well, right? Whatever micro level take that you have, like let's just say that I think Liverpool, you know, take a lot of low quality shots on goal, more than other Premier League teams. How many more saves should that be worth? 1, 2? It really shouldn't move the needle too much, I think, given how random these trends are. I didn't look into individual team trends. Teams change managers so much, but maybe you could look into like I could easily filter this data and look at Liverpool only and see if there's any trends based on the Liverpool team performance. Compare that to Manchester City. We can talk about our boy Neverson. City seem to never really concede. They never seem to get a lot of saves because they just dominate possession so much, really, no matter what the game script really is. So maybe there are some small edges to be had there. But again, I don't really, you're talking about a half a save on expectation or something like that. So I would say that one thing I learned to do in this, because like the variance is so high, be cautious in how much your individual observation will move the needle on sort of historic expectation, unless you have good reason to think that you can beat it. But I don't think
Mhm.
many people do.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions. If you thought of building this a little further, would you actually go to specific teams, specific goalkeepers kind of thing? As I pull player stats and save numbers, and I kind of brought this up to you before the show. Again, we're getting into the weeds a little bit here, but you can see here in the save numbers for some of these players. Okay, Ederson, this is in Premier League play. So
Hmm.
Ederson 1.78 saves per game or
Hmm.
per 90 minutes. David Raya 1.53. So okay, Manchester City, Arsenal, they're going to be maybe bigger favorites more than a lot of these other teams. But okay, there's been times where Aston Villa and Liverpool have been pretty big favorites. Newcastle at home as well. We have Alisson up here, basically one more save above both of those guys, Ederson and Raya there. He's 2.83. Emiliano Martinez 2.95. Obviously, okay, you're incorporating the way the teams play. Manchester City, Arsenal, just completely ball dominant, and you're not going to see the saves because they have the ball so much, and the other
Mm-hmm.
team, we've seen, I guess, just specifically recently, so many times the last 2 months where it's like, okay, Manchester City, 80% possession, the other team, 2 shots, one of them on target, one of them as a goal kind of thing. We've seen that, it feels like almost every week in the past 2 months, but probably hasn't happened that much.
It's happened
Just,
quite a lot to me, at
yeah,
least.
just seems like so frequently. So, I mean, is this something you think that maybe you could build on, or maybe it's just not worth it? And it's just like, okay, well, we can take these numbers without even, having to calculate. We can see the saves these guys are making. Maybe it probably is a little safer to use an Alisson instead of an Ederson
Yeah.
because of the way that Liverpool play compared to the way that Manchester City play. So maybe it's a case by case, team by team basis, and maybe we don't have to do further research.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it just comes down to, just having some knowledge of the Premier League, right? So you
Hmm.
said it perfectly. Like Arsenal are just so ball dominant, and so are Manchester City. Whereas, Liverpool, I think they've been a little bit more suspect on defense. They've been letting, you know, counterattacks happen with a little bit more frequency, and you're kind of seeing that in the save data that Alisson is facing those, getting one more save. And what you can just say is, sure, if you think Liverpool are more likely to concede to, get another save, that could be, 2 points more in projection. But if you're getting more saves, you're probably conceding more shots on goal, and that's probably bad for keeping a clean sheet, right? So you kind of have to counter those expectations. Fortunately, like stuff like the cheat sheet has the clean sheet expectation, the win expectation. I think those are really efficient markets in soccer. I think a lot of people bet into, a lot of sharp action gets bet into a lot of these basic Premier League lines. So if it was a tie and you had to choose between $5,800 Alisson and $5,900 Ederson, and you'd use this observation and choose Alisson, I think that's perfectly reasonable. But you should also probably look into the opponent, right? Some opponents are going to maybe be more likely to take low quality chances, and if you can measure that in some way, I think that would be a little bit better.
Yeah, fortunately, we have all these stats on the site: team stats, player stats, trends, all that. So all that is available if you want to dig into. I don't want to say the weeds again, but dig into the details
Yeah.
of all this. And you can, instead of asking Jack to do this, instead of asking the professor to do this, to maybe do this yourself. Maybe figure it out yourself. How about that?
Yeah, there's
So,
nothing that I did here that I don't think anyone can really do. Like, I'm not good at Excel in any way. Like, you can look at my graphs. I'm a total butcher with it, but I know how to use the data analysis tool and, equal correlation and stuff like this. Just some really basic commands that you can do to maybe just put a number to everything, and you can use that to help make decisions. Like, I think like one thing that I can use in my head, we're looking at the worst goalkeepers, looking at about 5 points on average, and we're looking at the best goalkeepers, about 10 points on average, medians. I'm speaking like the actual 50 percentile outcome. So if you're looking at a construction where you pay all the way down and spend up a little bit more in a utility spot, or you pay all the way up and spend low on a utility spot, maybe one heuristic you can use is, does the outfield player I gain when I spend down, do I get more than 5 points in projection? Like, I never knew how many points that should be at. And now I kind of feel like I have an okay handle on what I'm looking for.
yeah, like a ballpark kind of a thing.
Yeah, you have more of a ballpark in this type of thing, and I think everyone can do little analyses like this. I mean, a lot of this was motivated by one of our Discord users, and he's a former writer, Hesh. He did some type of analysis on this, and my point of view is I kind of just took a lot of his observations and questions, and I found a better data set, and I was able to answer them in a slightly different way. So, I owe a lot to his earlier work and his earlier questions and thoughts on the matter in this sort of thing. But I mean, if you have a question, I mean, you can use the RotoWire tools to probe around a little bit. Like you can ask if because I think like RotoWire keeps track of like shots outside the box, so you can ask, do shots outside the box correlate to more saves for the opposition or something like this?
Hmm.
Because it could go either way. Those are easy saves, but also if it's Andros Townsend in his old Tottenham days, those are going into row Z. Those are not being saved as often necessarily. So you do have to put some data on it, I think, to make your observation a bit more sharp.
I think we saw it even earlier this season. Something like just comes in mind. Eberechi Eze, who, his floor is up in 20 points, but he was taking so many shots from 30 yards out that weren't going to go in. And it was, okay, play the opposing goalkeeper against Crystal Palace kind of a thing, because they don't have a lease right now, and they're taking a ton of shots outside the box, usually Eze kind of thing. So you can look at that from a team by team thing.
Yeah,
But
did that work? Is is a good question to look into.
yeah. One thing I'm just noticing here. You've mentioned using DFS trends lately. I just did a kind of intro video to DFS trends, but I think I'm going to try and get goalkeepers on the DFS trends page over at RotoWire, because I just noticed they're not on there. So
yeah, if you could keep track
might
of the
be,
goalkeeper floor, see if there's like a little bit of noise
that
in there, and maybe
feels
that
like
could,
it'd be useful.
yeah, and maybe they're, maybe Ederson's getting a little bit of a half point extra from his accurate passes or something stupid like that. I don't. It would be nice to have. It doesn't seem like it would be too painful to put on there, but
No.
have to submit the ticket. So.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're at 25 minutes. You said we'd be, I don't, would you, if we went 30 minutes, we'd be true sickos, or whatever you said,
Yeah. But we
discussing your
are.
article
So.
here.
This is known. Yeah, I think maybe some like further questions you could.
Sure.
I might look into more individual team trends, like comparing Manchester City to Liverpool, just because they've been in the same management. You have that sort of like consistent type of thing. Like I think that would be more fruitful than analyzing historical Tottenham performance, right? Like Tottenham now has a new goalkeeper and has had like 4 different managers over this time window, and they've all kind of had different styles of play. Like the way that Ainge ball works is going to be much different than how Antonio Conte and his meathead style of play. So looking at historical trends in that way, I think it can be dangerous. But if you do it in a tasteful way, like I think you could probably look at Crystal Palace and how they played, because they've had a lot of Roy Hodgson over the time. So maybe I
Mhm.
can do some team analysis. You can go on Discord and ask me, and I can produce a graph, and it's up to you to see if it's useful or not. But I'm pretty proficient at doing those now.
Yeah, the Sean Dyche Everton. We've seen a lot of times Everton this season where they have tons of shots, tons of XG, but no goal, and they get the loss.
Yeah, I
So
can look. You
maybe
can look at. I can like filter out the dates in the data set, because the data set has all the dates of the
yeah,
matches. So you
look
can
at
look.
Burnley.
I
Yeah.
have some old Sean Dyche Burnley, and you can look at the Sean Dyche Everton. You can see if maybe that's a little bit more conducive to a save environment, and then maybe you can expect one more save or a half save extra. And those are little edges that if you play DFS a lot, I think that type of thing adds up.
Mhm. So you do one thing after all the classic slates, most of the classic slates. You look at where the sharps go. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've paid attention. You'd have to kind of recognize and keep track of where the sharps go. But have you noticed like maybe one DFS player having more success at picking goalkeepers week by week, or is it just like, okay? I mean, obviously you'd probably need to graph this out and see. I mean, this is a lot of research into just looking at prior
Yeah.
lineups, kind of a thing. But do you know, or think one of the sharps or DFS players has maybe better goalkeeper information, or better strategy of playing goalkeepers?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really. You would have to plot it out, because even if you
Right.
just play like 38 classic Premier League slates and you look at someone's win-loss record in cash games, I mean, like I think there's a lot of variance in a sample of that size. Like Redcoat cashed and double ups like 70% last year, and now he's come back to earth. Just probably like a little bit above normal. And Saramek has not been cashing as much, but Saramek's one of the best players in the lobby. So there's going to be a lot of noise in that type of analysis. I do notice that different players have different trends. So there are some players who prefer to spend down at the position a lot, and maybe find a little bit more ceiling in their lineup. But there's also like a lot of things that could go on. Like Pew 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 is a player who spends down at goalkeeper a lot, but I also know that his action, might be more primarily in like a 3-man type of thing. So maybe that's more conducive to that. So you'd want to be really quite careful in that sense.
Mhm.
I mean, Saramek spends up a lot, so maybe Saramek knows a little bit more about like the range of outcomes, and the risk of ruin is countered by just a more reliable source of 14 points in the lineup slot. Maybe something like that is a meaningful observation to them. Some players just pick a little bit more randomly, and I think do a whatever fits sort of attitude, which I also think is quite sensible. So I don't know, maybe just copy what Redcoat does. That's probably the best advice I could give anyone.
Maybe one last thing. So the whatever fits part to goalkeeper. I don't know if I'm starting to, but I've just noticed that okay, maybe you're in the sub 5K range of goalkeeper, and it's okay. The first one is maybe like a slight away underdog or slight home favorite, and I don't know. I mean, this is kind of recency bias and kind of just coming to my head. It's like, well, is it always whoever fits? You're just plugging in this 45, 46, 47, whatever goalkeeper, whether you have no thoughts on the game kind of thing. It's just a game between two slight favorite,
Hmm.
slight underdog. But it always seems like whenever you do that, it's always, the underdog 3,800, underdog $4,000 goalkeeper that wins. I mean, obviously, I don't know even know if this is a question. It's just like so obviously frustrating for I think everyone who plays DFS soccer. This is just the
Yeah.
thing that happens to everyone. I don't know. Did you come to any conclusion in terms of figuring that out, or are you still going to be like, okay, if I'm in this $4,800 range, I'm just going to play whoever kind of thing.
In my gut, I hate being in the $4,800 range at goalkeeper on DraftKings. I always just feel like I never really want to play that goalkeeper. Usually there's someone on the other side who seems like a good play for whatever reason, and I get nervous about it. And I think the data lends itself. So maybe like a $4,800 goalkeeper has like a 40 to 50% chance to win, slight favorite, like you said. But I found that, when running the regression, again, there's no linear relationship. So running a regression and, trying to figure out how much 10% of win probability means to scoring is kind of futile. But it really seemed like the general trend, for whatever it's worth, was about like 18% win probability contributes to like one projected point. So that's how much like the average score moves up. I mean,
Basically, not
20%
worth
in win
it.
probability is a pretty big gap in DraftKings pricing. My impression is that on really big slates, if I'm spending on a $4,800 goalkeeper,
Why
I would
not
like to
just
see if I can.
find the money for a field player instead?
Yeah, because there's going to be so many field players to choose from, right? So I think that's probably a general trend. And, you know, maybe before I wrote this, I'd be like, oh, but I'm going to get my -6 for my spend down. I know that doesn't happen as much. So I think I'm more going to be
That
more
was one of
reliant
your
on doing that type
students.
of thing. Yeah, that was one. That was me. I was being one of my students.
Yeah, again, it just comes to okay, if you're in that spot, maybe you're just like, okay, again, you're looking at numbers. What team has more shots from outside the box? What goalkeeper makes more saves? That kind of a thing. So maybe you're kind of doing that added research as well. But again, with soccer, we only have 60 minutes pretty much from lineup release to deal with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's why it's kind of a popular strategy. It's like put in, it's the Jordan Cooper method. Put in whoever fits. Home underdog, I believe, is what Hesh always plays, the
Hmm.
cheapest home underdog kind of a thing. And there's not really much thought that goes into it, but maybe you throw in a few more stats here and there, and maybe you're gonna be, better than you're not gonna be playing the -10 goalkeeper. You're not gonna be playing the 5,900 Ederson and getting 5 points from him kind of thing. Maybe if
Yeah.
you throw in some more numbers here, using Jack's numbers, maybe you're gonna, be better than the majority of the field. So maybe that's another thing to add to that.
Yeah, and I think maybe one thing is that I don't think you should have a uniform approach to a goalkeeper. I think that's bad because in DFS we build lineups, right? This is a Jordan Cooper lesson. You build lineups, you don't choose players, and there's no just like, oh, cheapest home goalkeeper is best. I mean, maybe there's situations where you play that $4,800 goalkeeper because it's a 4-game slate, and for whatever reason, there's just like really weird gaps in pricing with viable plays, and you really can't gain anything with that 1,000. So you may as well just take the more expensive goalkeeper. Like all things equal, I want to spend the most money at goalkeeper because that correlates with more likelihood of getting the win chance. So it's always a game of analyzing your trade-offs, I think. It's not just picking the right goalkeeper. It's you have to, you know, can you spend that $1,000 more wisely somewhere else? I think you always have to think that way. Now, if just saying play cheapest home goalkeeper just helps you make better lineups, I think that's fine to have that as a heuristic because it's so random. But I really think I really try not to be dogmatic in my point of view of goalkeepers, whether it's through skill. Like I'll still play Ederson and he'll still, not get the clean sheet bonus and everyone will point and laugh in the Discord, but I sort of trust, broader trends a little bit more than
Mm.
that. So just take what the slate gives you.
Yeah, my one uniform rule that I swear I'm going to keep the rest of the season is not to play Mark Flecken.
I think that's a
Uh,
good rule. Yeah, that one I'll allow you to have.
I had him against Crystal Palace. He got 5-holed by Joachim Anderson. Then I broke that rule a few weeks ago, home against Wolverhampton. He gave up 4 goals and made 1 save. I think that's the second biggest favorite on the slate. So that is my one strategy. Not going to play Mark Flecken
Yeah, take
again
that
this
one to the
season.
bank. I think that's a good strategy.
A winning strategy. You got anything else, Jack?
I got nothing else. It was fun to chop it up a little bit. Like you said, it's a bit of a dead period, but we'll all be playing Showdown, hanging out in the Discord. We'll all be up at like midnight watching Club America try to beat Mazatlan or whoever the hell they're playing in Liga MX. So if you enjoy just talking about random stuff like this, come join us
Yeah,
in the Discord. We have fun.
a couple big games tonight. I think Tijuana might be in action, something like
Well,
that.
we got Querétaro at home against like Toluca, and then I
Okay,
think you
yeah,
have
you're right.
Mazatlan is playing
Let it
not
go.
Atletico. Yeah, those should be awful games. I can't wait. But it's
There
the
we go.
opener.
Any questions? You can find Jack at Jack Burkart on Twitter. I'm at Zdroik. Also, RotoWire Soccer on Twitter. RotoWire.com/soccer trial, 48-hour trial, but you're going to want a subscription for the site and everything. And also, you need the subscription to read this article. I did not scroll down to conclusions on this article. You got to scroll all the way down, find the conclusions, and also go to the tables that Jack was talking about. There's mean stats, median stats with percentiles of everything. So you're going to want to check out that table as well. Check out the article. That's at rotowire.com/soccer, and it shouldn't be too difficult. You can actually, I think you can actually Google. If you can't find it on the site for some reason, Google Jack Burkart, Google Professor Jack Burkart,
Oh, come
RotoWire.
on.
And his name will pop up for RotoWire, and all his articles will pop up, and you'll be able to find this one. So, Jack, thanks for joining me on this show. It's
Thanks,
been
Adam.
fun. It's been fun. First DFS show, I guess you could say, of 2024. I can't remember doing another one prior to this. We might have some showdown stuff in the future. We'll see what happens. But thank you, everyone, for watching. Like this video, subscribe to YouTube. Ask Jack any questions. Sorry, ask the professor any questions. Professor. Thanks, Jack. We'll see
Thanks,
everyone
Adam.
in the future.
See y'all.